Alrighty. Good night, everyone. Tonight I'm doing the Women with Money series again. This time, of course, with the lovely Kyla. I'm just waiting for her to jump in and get on board. We have a great topic that we want to talk to you guys about tonight, and it's about playing small. And I really want us to dive really deep into this, particularly because we're talking to women about playing small. And I think that this is a topic that a lot of women encounter, and they do so in various ways. And exploring that tonight, I think, would be a lot of fun. So I'm waiting for Kyla to jump on board here with me. The last time I did one of these lives, the last time I initiated, let me say, one of these lives, Instagram didn't have the 40,000 things that they have going on here at the bottom of the screen. So God only knows what happens when you press all of these buttons. But what I do know is that hopefully Kyla gets on soon so that we can get this party started. Kyla's joining me from Korea. And so it is, let's see, it's 8:30 Eastern time. So it's, I think, 9:30 in the morning in Korea. So like I said, every week you can tell the difference in our energy levels because Kyla is like up and at 'em and ready to go. And I am, winding down. So you will be able to see, hopefully my energy is a little bit better than it was last week. Last week I was not feeling the greatest. I was really sick. I was going down for the count. Now my already raspy voice is a little bit more raspy. Is that raspier? I don't know what to say. Than it usually is because I'm slowly but surely recovering from the cold that I had. And in these times when you have a cold, it's really about what's that? You know what I mean? What's that virus? But I am not COVID. I am COVID free. And so that's good to know. However, I was pretty much under the weather. So now that you know all of that, I am waiting for Kyla to join me and see what she has to say. Let's see what's going on here. It looks as though she may want to get on, but I don't see her connecting. And like I said to you before, the last time I did this, I think the last time I initiated a live was sadly last summer. So, Kyla, I see that you're trying to get in. Let's see. And we can get the ball rolling here. I think I've let you in, and then, yay! I love when this works. I love when this works. Oh my gosh. Because God knows it's always something else. I see we have the penguin again.
What's up?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I was just saying I'm feeling way better than I was last week when I was pretty much going down pretty quickly. And then I spent the rest of the week feeling like crap, but I feel much better now. And this week, my already raspy voice is a little raspier, but much, much better than it was midweek. So things are good. How are you?
Good. I'm in my home office now, which is
Nice.
kind of nice. It's always good to be back at home.
Well, I was telling the people that we're going to be talking about playing small.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Hi, I am B word. B word.
I guess we can wave. So I thought it was really fitting for us to bring up this topic because this is often something that women are struggling with. And a lot of the times they're not even aware that they're struggling with playing small. right? We're so conditioned to like shrink that we almost have a way of self-imposing these like tiny little cavernous areas for ourselves, and we stay within the confines of them.
Yeah. You know, what I'm thinking about and what I see with my clients is apologizing. And, you know, I'm curious to hear what you think too about other ways that women play small and maybe don't even realize. But there's like, there's an apologizing for, you know, I don't know if you've ever noticed it in a women's public bathroom. It's like,
Oh my gosh.
sorry, 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 sorry,
Sorry.
sorry,
Oh, sorry.
sorry,
Sorry. Yeah.
sorry, you know, and the every time you say sorry, you're shrinking down.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like if you've ever worked with me, like the women I work with, they never apologize. They'll say, thank you for your patience, but they won't say like sorry. Like even if they have to go and like take care of their kid for a second and come back to the Zoom call, you know, and it's really awesome to see that transition, right? Because you're also then moving from a place of playing small, and the other person feels bad too, right? So you're playing
Yeah.
small, the other person is made to kind of feel bad and shamed and awkward too, versus thank you for your patience, which is then, you know, in gratitude.
Precisely.
And
Yeah.
you're, you know, not playing small. But yeah, curious to see if you know, if you notice in your clients or in your experience, like other ways that women play small.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that. And I really, when we were talking about this playing small, and you're so right about, you know, the women's bathroom, so right. I have a friend who does this all the time, and I remember her doing this when we were like, I guess in our early 20s, like shortly, like very much out of college, like not too long out of undergrad, and like she still does it to this day, but we, you know, was saying, I remember distinctly her saying, you know, sorry, 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 like all the time when we're maneuvering through the store. And I was like, why do you keep saying sorry? Like you're allowed to take up space, right? And it was just wild to me that I'm like, what are you apologizing for? Right? Nobody else is doing it. None of the men, of course, were doing it, and I surely wasn't doing it. You know me, I'm not doing that. So I'm like, that's not one of the ways I play small, but I know that I see that, and she still does it to this day, which is fascinating to me. But I distinctly remember being like, you are allowed to maneuver like around throughout the world. You're allowed to take up space. But I was thinking about our conversation. I was yours and mine. I wrote a post about Airbnb, and it was based on our conversations about staying at Airbnbs and various Airbnbs. And I really liked the fact that, you know, and I thought about this when I wrote it, because I was writing about, hey, when I go to an Airbnb, I want to stay somewhere that's better than the place that I live, nicer than the place that I live. I want to level up, or I don't want to stay there. Like, what is the point in me paying my money to have this experience? And it's not showing me a different space, right? A different way in which people live, being in a different room, right? And for a split second before I sent it out, I was like, how is this going to be received? What is that? You know, what are people going to think? You know what I mean? For a split second, that crossed my mind. And I thought, that to me is one of the examples of playing small, right?
Mm.
That, you know, occurs for me every now and again when I'm like, hey, I'm working with people. I'm like, look, I want you to understand the value of, you know, what you create. I want you to understand the value of what you want to have in this world. I want you to understand that money is this tool that you can use to, have all of these things. You just need to understand that it is solely a tool and that it is your mind and your thoughts that create all of these things, right? But just like I'm telling people about this, and it's like, it's a great feeling when you have some money and you can live the way that you want to live and do the things you want to do. Every now and again, I'm like, is that too much? Are you putting too much out there? Are you saying too much about that? Are you, bragging? Are you, whatever the case may be? And I realized that that's a way in which I play small. And I have to be really intentional and really aware of when that happens, when that pops up.
Yeah, I mean, so much. Yeah, I totally agree. I love that post, by the way. So just for folks out there, Shannon and I, like, I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna, what do you think about this Airbnb? What do you think about that? And I'll like send her over. I mean, this is what you do during COVID,
Of course.
like you like look at Airbnbs together.
Absolutely.
I mean, but to what you're saying, and to link this to money, right? I think that like what I've seen and what I hear a lot with my clients is, well, I don't know what I would do with all that money.
Oh,
Do you know what I'm saying? So
interesting.
as in, I don't like playing small, right? I don't need that much.
I hear that a
Right?
lot. Yeah.
I don't need that much. I don't know what I would do with that anyways, right? Which is interesting, because I think then, like you said, with men, you don't see that, but it's because societally, men have permission to go balls out.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
women, we don't have that same permission to go boobs out, whatever the equivalent would be. And so we're like, oh, well, I don't need that. So it's kind of like, how can I say this? So have you ever done this exercise with your clients where you're like, what's the dream?
Absolutely.
Like we got an LOL from IMB word.
Mm.
What's the, like the boobs out dream? What's the dream, right? And
Right.
a lot of the women in my incubator are like, I've never said it out loud. Right? There's, again, like we talked about last week, right? There's a fear under that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
If I say it out loud, then I'm a B word. I'm a bragger, other B word, this, that, I'm a gold digger, I'm a da 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 da. So, when you cannot see, this is Shannon and I with our analogies. when you cannot see the finish line, or any finish line, why start the journey?
Right.
You're going to
Right.
be exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? And or lost carrying the other person's backpack.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's so interesting that I also when I work with my clients, I get them to start with the goals and the dreams, right? And I want them to be big. I want them to be audacious. I always tell them that if it feels crazy to them, that's what I want to hear. Like, that's what I want them to do. And, it's always the women who pull back, and it's like pulling teeth to get those dreams out of them. Right? They're also the ones, like you say, who are like, I don't want to be a millionaire. I don't want to have a ton of money. And I'm like, why not? Why not? And I find that when you're in these small rooms, in these small spaces, with these small or non-existent visionaries, it's like claustrophobic. claustrophobic in there.
And that claustrophobia, more analogies. Here we go. But that claustrophobia and that box was not built by you.
Yes.
You're in someone else's fucking box.
Yes. Yes.
And you're claustrophobic because of their box.
Right.
And so you can't see, right? I mean, and this is, also me, right? I'm not judging. Like, this was also me before I met Shannon, because when she was talking about, what's the dream? What's the, the boldest, badassest thing? I'm recalling conversations I've had with her where I'm like, babe, I have a crazy idea. And, in my head, I'm like, it's so crazy. I don't know. And Shannon's like, yeah, easy. Do it. Like, do it. And I'm like, really? So if, maybe we're moving to the solution part, right? Like, because we always talk about coaching, getting your mind out of that box, that claustrophobic box, right? But also, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with, right? You and I always talk about this too.
Mm-hmm.
But, having that friend, having that coach, having that person that you can go to, like, I have this crazy idea, or like, look at my Airbnb, right? And not fearing the judgment.
Right.
Right. Hi, Winston Fletcher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's so interesting because I got a lot of comments on that post. And the women that are not in those small rooms, the women who have decided that they're like, yeah, I want that big, audacious goal and dream, they were the ones like, hell yeah, what is the point of, staying small, staying in somewhere that's, subpar, not as good? They're like, no, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make sense to them. And that's because they keep putting themselves in those spaces, in those rooms. They've curated those 5 people around them who get it. Right?
And listen, like, it's not like overnight you're going to be like, I'm going to go from small claustrophobic box to that really big, gigantic box. And it's going to be, because that's another reason for us to stay small, right? Like, you want to go from the small box to the really like extra large box, and you're like, wait a second, it's not working, right? So it's like what you tell me, right? Like the, incremental, right? From extra small box to small, and then from small to, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I was thinking about those incremental steps, and it's funny how when you're in that space where you're accustomed to shrinking down and playing small, you almost create these self-imposed ceilings, right? Where you decide that this is enough for yourself. You decide that, okay, no more. I really don't need any more. I don't need to create any more. This is good enough for me. And anything above and beyond where you're currently residing is too much. So this becomes sufficient. When it's like, that's not sufficient. Right?
Yeah.
That's survival.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's what I want to say. Like, I think you and I have talked about this too, right? Like, I think we both work with people who are scared to start certain things, right? Scared to start budgeting, scared to start a business or scale a business. And a question that Shannon asked me that I just was like, oh, was, as a coach, right? Like, you're helping other people not stay small. And then when it comes to yourself, you're like, oh shoot, wait a second.
Yeah.
I'm also, there are areas in my life, or, like for me, I'm fully transparent with the women in my incubator. I'm like, yeah, I'm very comfortable with my 10K months, and Shannon's like, well, level up, sister. And I'm like, ah, immediately panic,
Sure.
right? I'm so, we talked about last week, right? Like being super comfortable, right? You want to stay in that, it's warm and fuzzy, and there's
And
like
the belonging that we talked
yeah,
about. If
right,
you step outside of that sphere, if you step outside of like your 10K month group of folks and you dared to cross the threshold into the 20K months, then that threatens your sense of belonging. What are they
right,
going to think? What are people going to say? Blah, 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 all the things, right? So then you shrink back if you don't decide to look at the thoughts that you have around jumping into that other space.
right, right. And that's why, we talked about like our first session, right? Oh, Queen of Wands.
Hi,
Hi,
Queen of
Star.
Wands.
Hearts. That's what we talked about, our first session. Belonging is the challenge, but
Yeah,
also the solution, right? Being an
absolutely.
creating those communities. And, this is why, it's so important for us to be here to break the silence, right? Because if you, it's kind of like, if you don't own your money story, right? Whatever it is, right? I'm in debt. I'm making 10K months, whatever I want to make $1 million, whatever your money story is. If you don't stop playing small and owning your own money story, you're going to start owning someone else's.
Mm,
That's not yours, that you didn't create, and then carrying that backpack of the fears, somebody else's fears, limiting beliefs, stress, anxiety, and blah, 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 right?
yeah, absolutely. I have a question here. Not playing it small. Where to once the double XL box is reached? Where to go? If you could retype that question, I'm just not entirely sure what you're asking, and I definitely want us to answer your question. And while you're doing that, I just want to speak to a point you raised there, Kyla, about finding that other place of belonging. Because you're in this one place and you are daring to go to another place, there are people that in that new space that you want to go to, that you can meet, that you can convene with, because they're there. And once you see, because that's what it's about, right? Seeing what's possible. Once you see what's possible and you get into that space, then you realize, hey, I belong here as well, right? And you get to decide. Ultimately, you get to decide where you want to be. And a lot of people choose to stay in the small space.
Yeah, I love that. And I would also say, so like that's moving towards, right? Like if it's like a journey, you're moving towards that new community, right? Of, maybe from 10K to the 20K. Hi, Wise Garden.
Hi.
Right? So you're moving away from the 10K, right? Maybe to the 20K. But also, as women, right? And however we identify, women of color, hyphenated Asian, la 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 la, which we don't see ourselves a lot in those spaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
When because a lot of people ask, this is kind of tangential, but maybe not. A lot of people ask about motivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's keeping you motivated, especially as a depression overcomer over here? Like, yeah, there are definitely days, and I've been very transparent with Shannon too, where I like getting out of bed today. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen, right? But what really motivates me and fuels me is, yeah, like absolutely moving forward, you can get to the communities, but also looking backwards, you're trail blazing that path for future generations of women who can resonate with your story and your journey and see themselves in what you're doing and seeing what's possible for them to stop playing small.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. I mean, representation definitely matters. And there is an element of comfort when you see someone with like similarities that you see in yourself. And it
Right.
may be someone who identifies as a woman, someone who's a Black woman for me, someone who's a Black woman of a certain age, someone who's a Black woman from a certain part of the country, whatever the case may be. We want to glom onto that thing that makes us feel that level of familiarity.
Right.
And then when you see that, and there is that level of familiarity, then you're like, hey, there's the level of possibility.
Right.
And they're so linked, so strongly linked to one another that really drives you to go beyond that small space, right? That small cavern that you've created, either that's been created for you that doesn't belong to you, or one that you're holding on to and creating for yourself.
Right. It's kind of like, you know how there's like different oh, hi, stay age 21. Wow, we have so many people today. um, you know how there's like different kinds of apartments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or houses of where to live. And you stay in, you know, your one particular home because it's, you know, it's really comfortable. Maybe you've lived there your whole life, right? You know, I think there's like some statistic that the majority of people in the US, they live in a certain radius around where their mother lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah, I've
COVID,
heard that.
right? I think COVID has shifted that, right? Because people are like, I'm not living in the city anymore. Like I don't have to commute.
Right.
But otherwise, right, the majority of people live in the state in that, right? And when you stay, not just in that home and not just in the, you know, neighborhood, it's kind of like also that's all you know.
That's right.
Because that's all literally and figuratively, right? Like that's all you can see.
Mm-hmm.
See your neighbor to your left, you see your neighbor to your right, you see your neighbor to across the street, and that's it, right? So that's, I kind of see that too, right? Like, oh, that, you know, it's all reflected back, you know, as a mirror. But if you could actually just take a step out, right? Just go to another neighborhood,
Yeah.
right? Just talk to another person that maybe you wouldn't normally talk to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're that mind, you know, we always talk about that mind fog will start shifting, right? And that's definitely a possibility. Hi,
Yeah.
begin out. So it looks like IMB word re-question the question.
Mm. If the goal is to reach larger boxes, small, medium, large, what does the goal become once the largest box is reached?
You want to tackle that first?
Sure. Okay. So I'm not saying particularly that everybody's goal is to go from box to box to box, bigger room, bigger space, and to expand, right? I think the beauty is to see that there's more, to see that there's something beyond what you already see in your circumference, right? That is what you know, I tend to get when I'm thinking about like traveling to other places in the world, right? I get to see more than what I see day to day. And that expands my options and my thoughts about possibilities for myself, right? That isn't necessarily everybody's goal to go to the next largest box, but it is to see that there's more than what there is in front of you currently. Now, the part of this, what does the goal become once you've gotten to the largest box? I don't know what the largest box is. I don't know if there is a largest box. I know that I can't define what the largest box is because my next box may be this, and I get there and there's something else. And then I get there and there's something else, right? So I don't think for me that the largest box is ever reached. I think that seeing what is possible for me is always what charges me. And that doesn't mean more. It's just, it could be different. It could be a different course. It could be a different path. But I think just having that flexibility and that those opportunities in front of me, what is really important. So it seems never ending to me, which I think is fascinating, right? I would hate to think that this is it and that I've defined that this is it, or someone else has defined that this is it. This ain't it. And you can't tell me what it is. Only I can determine what that is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you know, it's along the lines of, you know, that small box, right? That you haven't created, right? That
Mm-hmm.
someone's, right? Is the Wise Garden says, Amen. Yes.
Yes.
So, you know, the thing is, right? We're saying all of this, but this assumes that you never change as a human, right? Humans are constantly
Mm-hmm.
evolving, number one. Number two, in what's going on in the brain is that once you can see what's possible for you, you you can create new neural pathways in your brain to get.
Absolutely.
Who care? You know, fuck the largest box. Make your own fucking largest box. I am B word, you know? Like, get it? You know? Like, what is even largestest? Make it largest.
I
Change.
love that you went from neural pathways in the brain to fuck the largest box.
Oh, are we gonna lose people? Are we gonna lose people?
Oh God, that's so funny. That is so good.
But
But
you know
you know
what I
what,
mean?
Kyla? I want you to speak to, you know, the women in your incubators who are starting their businesses and they're like, some of them are starting, some of them are, you know, growing their businesses. Like, what do they think? Do they create their own boxes? Do you see that where they create their own, like, you know, restrictive places, or how does that work? What do you see?
Yeah, no, I love that. And Shannon is one of our guest speakers. She's amazing, and everybody like loves her. Um, so yeah, um, what I would say is, and it's interesting that you're asking this question because I literally was writing about this in my
Okay.
third. But you know, the thing is, what I see in the incubator, and also myself, right? I am the ladies, and I am the sister, the Ready Set Grow sisters, and they are me, right? And I was them, I am them. You know, we're all in it together. But what I see that changes, which is really cool, is that once they give themselves permission to stop playing small, right? But not just to stop playing small, but to stop living in boxes made by other people, right?
Mm.
And one of the things, right, like make your own fucking box, right? But the thing is, that's what I realized in, you know, rolling out the first incubator is like, it's really just doing business on your own terms, right? Because listen, if you were doing business on Chad, have we talked about Chad in this series yet?
Not yet.
Should we talk about Chad?
We'll bring Chad in. We have to introduce Chad.
Okay, so just really quickly, and you'll have to fill us in on who the creator of Chad. But
Absolutely.
Chad is the mediocre white guy.
Mm-hmm.
Who's yeah. So who was the creator of Chad again, babe?
Her name is Vivian K, and her handle it's Vivian K, and she is a content creator, but she's really, I mean, brilliant and fascinating. And she created this character, Chad, who I guess I'll tell them now, who for a lot of her female identifying clients, because they did this whole notion of and lived and embodied this whole notion of playing small. And she would say, you know, hey, you got to get out of that. You got to pretend you're Chad. You got to act like Chad. What would Chad do is actually the moniker that she uses. And she would say that Chad is this mediocre white guy who's like, oh, I barely have any qualifications for this position. I'm going to apply. Or, oh, I don't know anything about this, but you know what? I'm going to teach you all about it. You know, things like that. Meanwhile, as you guys probably know, women have to have like 95% of the qualifications before they even consider maybe possibly kind of sort of applying for a position, right? So these are the kinds of things. And she also speaks to what you were saying earlier about women apologizing, I'm sorry, and all of this stuff that they do. And she always says, what would Chad do? And it really applies to putting yourself out there, getting the Chad cojones, especially when you are in a position, right, way ahead of Chad, to do whatever it is that you set your mind to and to go ahead and do it. So it's fascinating. People should go follow her. It's Vivian K. I think it's Kaye. And she's just really good, but she came up with the what would Chad do?
Yeah, so we talk about, you know, thanks to you and thanks to Vivian, you know, and thanks for explaining that. You know, we talk about, you know, what would Chad do, but we also talk about, you know, when we get into the marketing section, right, we're coming in with all these assumptions, right? Kind of like the box, right? There's an assumption that there has to be a largest box. It has to be created for us, or what, you know, whatever the assumption is in your mind. But the turning point is when I'm like, well, if you don't feel comfortable marketing that way, why would you want to market that way or make yourself feel bad that you're not marketing that way? Because you're not going to get those, you're not going to want to call in those clients anyways.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
like, so it's as soon as there's that shift to like, oh my God, I can be myself, I can be vulnerable, I can be authentic, and I'm going to get the clients that I actually want, right? Because I could sit here and be like, okay, take the penguin thing off, take the glasses off, wear a suit, put some makeup on, and I'm not saying that anything wrong with wearing a suit or anything, right? But that's really just not who I am.
Right.
And I'm, you know, that's maybe another way that, you know, we play small, right? We play small to who we're not, right? We're like shrink down and do things that we think we need to do in order to be successful.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
there's few role models out there, right?
Right.
Doing things differently and on your own terms.
Yes.
But I think on your own terms is so key, whether it's the box, whether it's marketing, whether it's, you know, money, whether it's soul biz, right? Because, you know, when you a one size fits all, right? That's why I think, you know, I love what your response to IMB word question is, yeah, like what your boxes are looking like, or what, you know, you or may not look like my boxes or IMB words boxes or Wise Gardens boxes, right? Like,
right.
And we're constantly evolving as humans. So why put ourselves in any kind of box, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just thought of something that I see with my clients that I'm wondering, when they get, like, my clients who happen to have businesses, and I think that this probably shows up with some of yours. Some of my clients are in this, a lot of them are in this paycheck to paycheck cycle, right? And so they, for whatever reason, like, they probably grew up in this rent to rent, paycheck to paycheck, that whole way of living, right? But what I see that happens with them when, they really think in these like 2 week or 1 month increments, right? And because they're like, okay, I have enough money to pay for the rent for next month, or okay, I have enough money to get me till the next Friday, that, and I'm not taking away from why they've gotten to that point and why they think that way. But what I do know is when they don't clean up that thinking, their businesses also work in those 2 week, 1 month increments. They can only see so far. They then create a money box, right? Which kind of prevents them from having a long range, long term vision for the business that is sustainable, because they can only see the next 2 weeks to pay for the next expense, or a month to pay for the next expense. And so it's so restrictive, right, that they can't imagine that the business could actually go beyond those incremental periods of time. And so they make decisions based on those periods of times. They don't make decisions based on the longevity of the business, the sustainability of the business. They don't, if they don't clean up that money mess, right? They take it into every aspect of their life, but it really shows up. I see it with my clients that have businesses. It just, and they get burnt out because they're like, oh, this is so hard. Because
Yeah.
it's like this churn, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have a question from, but I'll let me respond to that, and let's get to the IMB words question
Mm-hmm.
about Chad. I love that. Yeah, no, to respond to that, I think, again, that living paycheck to paycheck, again, that's, the neighborhood. That's what you see.
Mm.
West, that's what everybody does, right? That's why you can see what's happening, not in judgment, right? Totally get it. That's why we're seeing this response to COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know in Malaysia alone, there were 600,000 people who went from middle class to lower class overnight because of COVID.
Because of COVID. Yeah.
Right? I mean, so um, again, when you're staying small, that's what you're, like you said, right? You're staying in that, what we call it, my husband and I call it burrito money,
Mm.
right? Like, got burrito money, we're good, right? But thinking beyond that and creating, again, creating your own box, creating your own, um, how could we stretch burrito money, right? And creating your own money story, not your neighbor's,
Yeah.
right? Just because the Joneses are month to month doesn't mean it's okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I think, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I also think that, you know, there are, how do I want to say this? Have you done that, or seen those things where, you zoom in on a walnut and it looks really different, and you're like, and like I've gone to presentations where they're like, what is this? Can you guess? And,
Oh, okay. Yeah, 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 yeah.
oh, it's a brain.
Yeah.
No, and then, then you zoom out, right? And it's like a walnut, right? So similarly, right? We are, again, when you're playing small, you're zoomed way into your life.
Mm-hmm.
You're zoomed way in.
Yes.
And I often think about this because I'm in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So if I zoom out, and you look at the satellite image of North and South Korea, right? I'm sure you've seen this, right? North
Mm-hmm.
Korea is dark.
Yeah.
South Korea is completely lit up with lights, right? But beyond that, I'm also always thinking, right, well, what's the long, zooming out, what's the long-term game? What's the vision? Not just money, not just money vision, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what's the impact? What kind of impact do I want to have on people's lives if today were my last day, right? I mean, I think it kind of goes hand in hand, right? Having this incredible vision for yourself, right? So playing small doesn't really allow for a lot of that vision. So yeah, shall we address Chad's money mindset question? Do you want to tackle that first?
Yeah, I don't know what Chad's money mindset is. I'm not a mediocre white guy. I don't know. I have no idea what Chad's money mindset is, right? Um, and everybody's money mindset, it comes from a lot of the time what you experienced in childhood and what you decided to bring with you into adulthood. And some people just dragged all of it into adulthood with them, and it either served them or it didn't. And some people dragged it with them, and then they made a choice about, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to change my money mindset. I want to change the way I think about money. I want to look at money differently if it wasn't serving me, right? So I can't answer what Chad's money mindset is, but I do think it's a valid question that everybody should ask themselves. How is your money and your thoughts and feelings about money showing up in your life, right? What is it doing for you or against you, right? It is a valid question that everybody should ask themselves. And if you identify that, hey, this is blocking me in any way, or it's not serving me, then yeah, get some help. Get some help with that.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, yeah, I don't really care what Chad's money mindset is, but piggybacking on what Shannon was saying, that our own money mindset was created 0 to 7 years old.
Yeah.
And the question to tune into here, IMB word, is your money mindset yours?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because oftentimes, like the backpack, we're carrying around a money mindset that is not ours, and we're feeding into that story, right? Mine, for the longest time, which was my great grandfather's money mindset, was if I make too much, I'll go bankrupt, or the money will get taken from me. And
Mm-hmm.
all my life, I just made just enough, just
So
enough.
as not to lose it.
Yeah, and if I
Yeah.
had a little bit more, I would give it away or spend it.
Right.
We have another question. How do you zoom out when you've been hyper focused for a long time on the same details? Do you want to take that, Shannon, first?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure about which details you're speaking about, but I think it's always interesting to look at those details and determine whether or not they're serving you. That's the first question I would ask myself. Are these details that I'm hyper focused on serving me? If they're serving you and you're hyper focused on them, is there really a reason to turn away from that? I don't know, right? But I think that, okay, you've written here about to start my career. I think that sometimes focusing on some of the details to make the situation perfect, right, doesn't serve you. And done is better than perfect sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of like, remember how we were talking about that Olympics commercial that was like, you don't have to be amazing
Yes,
but you have to start to be amazing.
absolutely.
That's what's coming to me. But also, Queen of Wands, there's this great activity, right? If you're focused on the day to day, there's this great activity that I do with clients where you write down, your schedule, like from the moment you wake up in the morning until the last thing you do at night. And then you write down, a couple, your three top core values, right? And you can also do this for money, right? If you want to really hone in on like money or career, um, and then you look at your daily schedule, just like a snippet, right? Like take your Monday through Friday, or like when I do this with corporates, they try to choose a Saturday or a Sunday. I'm like, no, 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 no. We're choosing a Monday through Friday. don't try to don't try to like sidestep. So, and then, circle, what you have to do is circle the activities in your day to day that reflect your core values, right?
Absolutely.
Because then that's, right, what I often notice with my clients, that's the stress, right? That's the stress, anxiety, the lack of balance, the lack of inner peace when your day-to-day schedule is not reflecting your core values,
Yep.
what you really want, right? Like, and getting you, right? Don't like, I'm not saying this in a mean way. I'm saying, because I also like, I totally get that, and being scared to start every day, right? Every other day, scared to start, right? Um, but what looking at, not the how do you zoom out when you've been hyper focused, but what is the fear that has kept you there for so long,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you wrote down there the key thing here that you wrote down. I've been so da 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 for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, if you anything that you are a long time and you're not getting the results, there's some fear
Yeah,
that's keeping you there, or small, or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
So looking at getting a little bit deeper into that, what is that fear? And again, is it yours? Because it's probably not. Give it back to an ancestor or someone else to carry for you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're almost like coming up to the hour. Do we want to wrap it, or how you? Yeah, stuck.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, lots of fear. And honestly, like Queen of Wands, that is usually what keeps people immobilized, right? It is that fear. And
Yeah.
all of us experience it, right? We all do. But it's
Yeah.
also terrifying to stay put.
Yeah. And Queen of Wands, you're a tarot card reader, psychic extraordinaire. Um, when you see the card, when the card shows up reversed, it has a very different meaning, right? So thinking about that, right, and wanting to be Queen of Wands and the right side up, just slowly, just moving that card a little bit, 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 so that it's right side up, for you. And the power behind that, right? So, and beyond that fear, you have all the tools within to
Absolutely. So
okay.
I know that we really went beyond our time today. But this was really good. I think it's really good to acknowledge this state of being, playing small, and for everyone to really take a look at where you're playing small in your life and really do an assessment. What is your penguin's name?
Oh, his name is Pengy. Oh, hi,
Hilarious.
on long.
Oh, hi, Erica. Oh, see, my voice is cracking now. But
Is
yeah.
that fine?
But yeah, I think that this is really an opportunity for us to just look inward and see where this is showing up in our lives. And we touched on this like a ton of times all over the place. So, I mean, oh, I like that little symbol you did there.
This is the Korean heart.
Oh.
And me, they're like, is that small penis? I'm like, no.
And with that, that's a wrap.
See you next week.
We will be here next week. Once again, 8:30 Eastern. What is it your time? What time is it?
9:30 a.m. Korean time, Wednesday mornings.
Okay, perfect. 8:30 Eastern, Tuesday nights. Great. Thank you so much,
Oh,
everyone.
thanks, IMB word. It was
I
informative
have
and
no idea how to turn this off, so good luck to everybody.
fun. I like how you're like
Bye, everyone.
everyone else. Thanks.
Bye.
Next week.